talking?
No, energy.
Where's my coffee? I'm in coffee, mezcal. I want a shot.
Let's go.
What are we talking about?
Why do you look like you're giving
Miami.
birth?
What are we talking about?
Miami.
Oh,
Welcome
Inflation.
to Miami.
Yeah, sing that. Let's go.
is this another episode or is this just like a little
It could be another episode. We
This is a
never know.
vlog? No,
Definitely not a vlog.
episode.
We're just dreaming about what would happen if we would move to Miami and how much money we would need to actually
We're
move
gonna
there.
talk about Miami and inflation.
And how does
and
it
Shadi's
compare?
story.
And how does it compare to Ottawa as well? Because they're two completely different cities.
So how are you gonna compare?
Lifestyle.
What are you
Well,
gonna compare?
In terms of what would you live in Miami? What would you live in Ottawa? What would you choose to live in Ottawa?
I like that.
Right?
I like that.
And everyone thinks
I'll talk about
Miami.
Ottawa. You talk about Miami. 'Cause you just want, okay.
Sounds good.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us again. This is the Realestating Podcast. We have a special guest today. He's actually
Wow, special.
Yeah, you're special. He's one of our team members, Shadi Bultaip. Shadi actually just recently went to the United States. He went to Florida, Miami. He was there for about, a week almost.
Yeah. Also Panama.
And I went to Panama too. Shadi, what we're going to be talking about in this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about Miami, life in Miami, life in Ottawa. Why would you live in either one of these places? And also a few funny stories about illustrating inflation. I'll let Shadi give us his story there. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Shadi, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be back. Feels like it's been a long time since I've been sitting here and chatting one-on-one. Miss it. So yeah, I just came back from a nice holiday in Panama City and Miami, and they're very similar cities.
Really?
Somehow. Yeah, like if you go to Panama, you get very Miami vibes. Of course,
yeah.
Miami is just taken to a next level.
Next level, yeah.
The funny thing about Miami, my dad has traveled to Miami several times. He's been in Miami a lot, but he hasn't been in the States for quite some time. So I was talking to him, and he's like, "Oh, are you in the hotel?" The hotel? You're crazy. I'm in an Airbnb, and I'm like a very very humble Airbnb.
A living room, couch, no AC.
Pretty much. There was AC, thankfully, and heating. It did smell like sewer every time I showered.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and you go out in the streets in Miami, and sometimes it kind of smells like sewer.
Really?
I think it's because
It's
you
like
have
New
the
York.
water bed is too high,
It's a
or I
little
don't
bit
know,
like-
something with the ocean.
Okay.
So anyway, I arrived. He's like, "Yeah, like I'm in an Airbnb," and he's like, "How come?" I'm like, "Well, because I'm not gonna spend $300 a night in a hotel. Plus, I want to be centrally
Probably more,
located."
no?
Well, probably more, right? But I wanted to be close to, I wanted to be within South Beach, and I wanted to be in the south of South Beach, so like in a good location where I could just walk everywhere.
Makes sense.
And if you want to stay there, you have to spend a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we found a really good. Victor actually found it, and I'm not gonna steal the credit. He found a good Airbnb location.
Of course, yeah, Shadi didn't plan anything with this trip, with regards to this trip.
And it was actually pretty good location. The Airbnb was okay. It was, I would say, very mediocre. I would say it was clean, but it was expensive. And my dad was telling me that he used to go to Miami and he used to stay in 5-star hotels for $120 a night.
Yeah.
$120 a night.
Well, how long ago was this? 20, 30, 40 years ago?
No, it was less. It was probably like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It was probably 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just insane. Miami used to be a relatively affordable city, compared to other major cities. New
Yes.
York has always known to
Yeah.
be expensive, for example.
Yes.
Miami was relatively affordable.
Miami used to be like, no one wanted to be in Miami, surprisingly, because I think Miami and Florida, they're in the middle of the world.
Yeah.
There's such an amazing hub. Same with Honduras. It's 2 hours away from Honduras.
Yeah.
Direct flight.
Yeah.
So I think it used to be no one wanted to be there, right? But it got developed, for a lot of reasons. I mean, we're not going to get into those reasons, but it developed, exponentially over the last few decades, 2 or 3 decades. And now it's one of the hot spots, right?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of, politically they've done a good job, I would say. I mean, there's not going to get into politics, but over the last few years, there's been a huge influx of migration from other states, from other countries. We have a few colleagues that have actually moved to Miami or Florida in general. So there's something good to be said about that. Why would you move? That's the question. That's what we wanted to talk. Why would you move? What would be an appeal? to go to Miami? Like, why would you move there?
I think that this is just like a dream idea of like moving somewhere because you like how it feels, and also you're spending a vacation time. You know, I met with a good friend. I grew up with this friend. She lives in Miami. We went to school for 15 years, so I know this person really well. And I met her after not seeing her for, I don't know, like 8 years. Now she's settled, she's married in Miami. And she says, I never go to South Beach. I never really go to that area. It's very touristy. It's very busy. When you're actually living there, you probably go to a more quiet neighborhood area. But I think it comes down to weather. Yeah. Like walking to the beach, like being able to be so close to the beach. Beautiful beaches. I mean, not compared to the Caribbean, but you get beautiful beaches and then you get all the perks of Miami. The weather is amazing. I mean, when we stayed there, the last day was kind of cold, like 9 degrees, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, it's so cold!" And I'm like, I'm like shirtless here, you know, coming from Ottawa. But it's
funny enough, like our colleague Victoria, who actually went to Florida, she actually posts all the time. She was wearing a puff jacket when it was like 12 degrees.
I was in a restaurant. I was in a restaurant eating dinner, and I just see this lady walking with a full-on parka. Canada Goose parka, and it was 12 degrees outside. I don't wear my parka until it's like minus 15.
I wear my parka after it goes below 15
you know what
degrees.
I mean? I'm also a little bit like, I hate wearing parkas because then you get into the car, you get super warm. But anyway, to achieve that lifestyle of Miami, the only problem with that is that if you want the same quality of life you have here in Ottawa, you need to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
And walking on the streets of Miami and realizing how rich people are is just insane. Like,
I think this is a perfect segue into Shadi's story. Maybe Shadi can tell us a little bit.
So I land in Miami, and I'm by myself. Sean and Victor hadn't arrived. Their flight got delayed, and I was just killing some time. Like, whatever, I'm just gonna walk somewhere and I found this nice spot around the Airbnb, and I'm like, it looks nice. It doesn't look like super fancy, and I also wanted to treat myself. But I want to enjoy, like I don't mind like spending a little bit more if I am going to enjoy. Yeah. But I felt like I got robbed. I walk into this restaurant and I look at the menu, and the menu has this weird order because you can see the price, but the price is sitting on top of the. I thought that the price of the item I was checking was it was actually the wrong price.
Shadi can't read a menu.
No, it was kind of confusing. So I'm like, oh, $25 US dollars also, because you have to factor in the conversion. $25 for a piece of fish. And I'm like, okay, fine. It's not cheap, but it's not like ridiculous, right? Yeah. That was the price for the meat. The fish actually had a market value, and it was not like a fancy like fish. It was just some Peruvian fish. It's just a fish, right? It's nothing fancy, nothing extravagant, right? And we're so close to the ocean. I wouldn't imagine that the fish was gonna be so expensive.
It's Peruvian fish. It's coming from Peru, not Miami.
I don't give up. I saw fish.
And just for the record, for anyone that's watching us, whenever you see a menu and it has fish on it or any sort of meat and it says market value, that's when you know it's expensive.
I am very
if the price of the meat or the fish fluctuates, don't buy.
I am very well aware of that. The problem is I did not know that was I thought that was for the meat because I thought it's probably an expensive meat.
Yeah.
Anyway, I ordered the fish. And I don't know the price of the fish. I ordered the fish and I asked the lady, does it come with anything on the side? And she's like, no, but we have, some sides. I'm like, $25 and there's nothing on the side. Okay. I looked for the cheapest side, which is mashed potato. I'm like, I'm going to choose mashed potato. You can't go wrong with that. I ate fish with mashed potato. There was nothing on the plate, just a really tiny piece of fish. And it was $55 US. Just a fish. That's like what, 75 Canadian dollars?
Yeah.
And the mashed potato was $20 US.
No.
Yes.
For the mash?
It was really good.
Was it like a full plate of mash?
It was a lot of mash. I ate every single piece of it. Like I ate all of it. Like I was licking the plate. I'm joking.
You can scratch that.
And then I wanted a drink. I didn't want a cocktail because I just wanted something simple, and the cocktails were like $45-$50.
No, for a cocktail?
Yeah.
No.
The gin and soda. Yeah, I don't know how fancy it is. And I looked at, do you know how Google gives you a little marks of like how expensive it is? It had, I think, three marks or 2 marks.
Expensive, yeah.
No, you can go up to 4 or 5.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, this must be cheap for Miami. But this is Miami price. That's the problem.
Wow.
And anyway, long story short, I ordered a drink as well. That was the first thing I did. And I ordered a gin and soda. Something simple. I just see the lady coming with the glass of ice, the bottle of sparkling water and the gin all separately. When I saw that, I'm like,
You're like,
"This is gonna be
take it back.
It's gonna be expensive.
Take it back. I'm okay. Use
The
water.
drink, I spent what, $30 in a drink.
Oh my God.
A gin and soda.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I don't even know, like,
So you spent like 120, like $130.
I spent
Canadian?
$120, $130.
Canadian.
No, more than Canadian, probably 140 something with tips, the 18% tip.
Oh
You
my
can
God.
tip less than that because they get paid much. And this is another thing, they ask tips for everything. You go to buy a bracelet on the street. Oh, what about the tip? And I'm like, I'm already paying for it. You can beep that out. It tips for everything. You go to Starbucks, you have to tip everywhere, and
Really?
it prompts you already.
It's
I
becoming
can,
a thing here too. Right?
yeah, well, in the States you can understand because the minimum wage in the States is much lower. They actually make a living out of tips. So I'm okay tipping 18-20% if I'm getting served.
Good service.
Yeah. But if I'm buying a coffee, why should I tip you?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a different conversation. But
Anyway, the bill was very expensive, and then I had to the nearest grocery store to buy snacks because I was hungry. So you saw me walking back with the grocery bags right past the restaurant, and the lady that greeted me in the restaurant is like, "Oh, have a good night," and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And I'm walking with the grocery bags, going to an Airbnb to eat snacks.
You buy a Snickers after the meal.
And it's like you're there to enjoy, but you don't want to spend that much money in the first day because you have all these other days and you have all these things you want to do. Anyway, that's Miami. And
So in a nutshell, we're not moving to Miami, no.
you need to make a lot of money, and then if you transition there, like, how are you gonna make money?
Yeah.
Unless you get a really solid job, you can do it. I'm sure you can do it, but you will have to compromise on your lifestyle and start from scratch, right? It's not like you
it's
just
tough,
move there and just have all the money in the world.
Of
right?
course,
People
yeah.
driving $650,000 cars, like
Yeah,
you know,
it's crazy. Yeah.
it's insane.
Well, it's a big city for you, right? And the big cities come with that,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's something to definitely consider, and I think also, like, Ottawa, like, we've been here for 18 years. Came here from Honduras, warm climate too, and I think the climate,
Yeah.
the weather would be the main consideration. I think for me at least, for us, it wouldn't be easy to transition either as real estate agents.
Yeah.
But we can figure things out no matter where. But the weather would be the main appeal. However, we have all our friends, family here, right? So that'd be the toughest thing.
It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard. Like I know our colleague Brunetta, she moved there because they got an opportunity.
Victoria Bernard, I mean?
Yeah, like she got you get an opportunity and you make the move, but you're not just gonna drop everything you have and just like, I'm leaving. Like it has to be purposeful. It has to be a reason why, or a valid
of
reason.
course.
Unless you're super young and you don't mind compromising.
Of course.
Another thing is Panama. Panama is great. Actually, it was ranked the third best country to retire in 2023.
Oh wow,
Yeah, the first one was, I believe, Mexico, then Portugal, and the third was Panama.
really?
And you would say, "Oh, why Panama?" Well, it's a combination of it's affordable. Like buying and renting is much more affordable. So if you're coming from a country like Canada or the United States, you can live in luxury for
Of course,
half
yeah.
the price. And also lifestyle, you get really good access to healthcare. If you make a good living and if you have a good retirement, you can go to the best hospitals in the city. They have great infrastructure. You don't have to wait in line. So there's a lot of things that we don't see here because we have a very different healthcare system. We have a different structure that works well when you're living here, but when you retire and if you have the money,
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah, especially when the kids are older too. Like, you don't have that, because that's, for me, that would be actually the biggest consideration. It's the kids. Like the support we have here, the schooling here.
Yeah.
I think it's great. We have a really good system going on. Once the kids are older, you're an empty nester. I think that's when you would consider. One thing I'd like to ask and kind of like engage with anyone that's watching is for you to comment and tell us, what do you think? Like, would you like to hear about properties in these countries? Right. We have connections, whether it's in Miami, whether it's in Mexico,
My brother,
Panama.
Yeah, my brother's a real estate.
Shadi-
He sells
Shadi's-
real estate in Panama.
There you go. Shadi's brother's a real estate agent in Panama. We have family in Honduras. We have beach properties in Honduras and contacts there as well. Friends from Costa Rica too. So we'd love to hear from you and see if this is something that you would consider, right? That you would like to hear more about. Like, should we start posting these properties, right? Is this something that you or your friends or your family would like to hear about? There's a lot of this going on, and I think it's funny because people don't know this, but you're actually between 4 and 5 hours on a direct flight from Ottawa or Montreal to either Honduras or Panama. Panama is an extra hour maybe.
Yeah.
But to Honduras, it's 4.5 hours.
Same to Pan.
Right?
Yeah.
We got married in the Bay Islands, which is in Honduras.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful island off the coast of Honduras. 4.5 hours for Montreal, direct. Right? So this is something to really consider.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd love to hear more about what you think,
Yeah.
of course.
And real estate, another thing I wanted to point out, just to see how, for people to realize how different real estate is in Panama, for example. You buy a property in Panama and, you pay $250,000, $300,000 US for a good apartment in a decent location. People actually make their money out of rent, not out of equity. So people, all they want is cash flow, and people that make their money cash flowing, which is extremely different on how things work here.
Yeah, not always. It's hard to cash flow.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
It's hard, and if you cash flow, great, but you're not really making any money. That's like pocket change compared to the value of the property.
Yeah.
So it's very different. Real estate works very different, and you can still build a nice portfolio there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people coming from bigger cities like Vancouver, Toronto. My brother has some clients investing from Montreal, Toronto, in Panama because it's super affordable, and they just Airbnb the place, and they just make nice cash flow.
Yeah. And that's something else.
Quick money, pretty much.
And that's something else that also we'd like to hear from you. See if you want to know more about this Airbnb and renting, these destination properties. We know a few people that do it, and again, all these different countries, whether it's Florida or in Mexico as well. We'd like to know if you'd like to hear more about this. Right? It's a topic we could cover in different podcasts. I think it's definitely an interesting topic for sure. Yeah. Alrighty, so that was Shadi's story in Miami. It's every time I think about it, I laugh. Every time I look at a piece of fish, I'm gonna think of that. But thank you so much for watching. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd love to see you next episode. And thank you so much, Shadi, for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure. It's always great to be here.
Awesome,
great people.
Thanks,
Carson
everyone.
is super easy to work with.
Yeah,
sometimes.
Carson. Can we film Carson? There you go. Carson actually is wearing a T-shirt because I'm wearing his sweater. For the record. Anyways,
I was like, it's not gonna fit. It's not gonna fit, and he's like, it's gonna fit.
It's gonna fit.
And
I've slimmed down a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
sure.
Anyways, thanks everyone for watching, and see you next time.
See you later. Good job.